Entity number 003, Warbell. The current description is as follows. The entity known as Warbell is an entity that has been on redacted files since redacted. E-003 is notable for its migratory patterns, hopping between northern Canada to the lower Chile region in South America. E-003 is a human-like being. However, the entity is known to change appearance. After several years of tracking it, the entity is known to change itself within less than a second. The most notable difference in its appearance is within the chest region. The chest physical deformity within the region, a circle with a diameter of 2 feet, is seen. The cavity was recorded with a perfect circular cavity, with a floating bell within its center. The bell structure is made up of simple iron and is capable of ringing without any interaction. This capability is what gives the creature its name. The effect of the bell is immediately witnessed after the first bell. Any living being within the area enters a wild state, a state where the beings attack anything that tried to stop E-003, even if that thing has entered the state itself. It should be recorded that the intensity of the ring has a direct correlation with how long the beings remain in said state. The longest time recorded was 70 hours with a total of 114 beings within said state. A special note, the entity has an influence on plant matter. Standard plant functions can become weaponized. However, this is rare and uncommon, and this is subject to further tests. It should be noted that the entity only uses its bell when threatened. E-003 is considered peaceful, often going out of his way to ensure that nothing is disturbed. There are no long-term effects of the bell, with the exception of amnesia of what occurred in said state. This file is subject to further changes.
There are things lurking in the forest and in the shadows, but more often than not, those things are out and about, interacting with thousands of people. In this world, even before mankind, there have been oddities, freaks, entities, things that never made much sense. Sometimes we call them super beings. Other times they are monsters. We can see them in books or on the screen, and can often lay in bed with the knowledge that the things that bump in the night aren't a monster. Sometimes we call them super beings. Other times they are monsters. We can see them in books or on the screen, and often lay in bed with the acknowledgement that the things that bump at night aren't a monster. But not everyone is as fortunate. There is a kernel of truth in every story. There are thousands upon thousands of things out there that can't be explained. Even with every piece of technology we have, there is something unexplainable. The redacted organization seeks to find those things that really do wander the streets and go bump in the night. Whether it's to capture, kill, or contain, there is only one objective.
The following section is part of a log submitted by Redacted. The hum of the small plane filled the cabin. Sitting to the side was Agent Fedora, calm and collected with a signature hat. With the sunrise casting harsh shadows across his face, Agent Jokes was reading through his files. Agent Howell, her forehead creased with thought, looked out through the window. Both agents were silent and focused, both holding their peace in the morning. In contrast, Fedora was flipping through a specific joke book, quietly murmuring to himself. Grounded, Fred chuckles, his eyes skimming across the page. Fedora. Agent Jokes looks up, peeved. Can we not go back to that? Fedora closes the book with a snap. Nah. It was funny then and it's funny now. Isn't it? Jokes. Toss me the file. With a sullen look, Hal turns around and sticks her hands out. Upon getting it, Hal turns away from the other two and quietly reads it. Jokes shoots her a look and then questionably at Fed. What's with her? Fedora simply winks and doesn't respond. As the silence goes oppressive within the cabin, Hal breaks it with a question. What the hell? This thing is insane. How are we supposed to deal with it? A hopeless look falls upon Jokes. Fedora, however, keeps smiling. Go ahead, create a plan. Points for creativity. Jokes says, we can trank it and then bag it. Vaporize it from the other. Now, we don't have nukes, Fedora says, waving his finger at Howl. None of that violent nonsense. Peering at both of them, he asks, what's the most simple way to get this done? The hesitation was almost palatable. It's simple, Fedora says, the smile on his face ever so more pronounced. Just ask. Agent Howl sputters and Jokes starts laughing. What are we going to do to contain it? What if it gets violent? Howl asks. At that, for the first time Agent Jokes had ever seen Fedora, his face puckers up. Well, let's just say we have company. The crew touched down in Redacted. The humid air clung to their clothes, all three agents soon damp from the heat, piercing the shadows of the trees around them. Pulling out a GPS-like system, Fedora leads the other two agents through the foliage. Hey Fedora, Hal asks. Why is it you who is leading this? She immediately starts backtracking as soon as Fedora lifts up an eyebrow. Not that you're bad or anything, but why isn't it Gel who's leading me? Fedora shrugs. It isn't anything big, but the loss of Agent Ghost was disappointing, and the higher-ups asked Gel to take a break. General, Fedora says as he steps around a tree, just wanted to make sure he could spend some time with his family. Other than that, I also asked for you two. It seemed like a great time to just hang out with the freshmen, lead a mission. It's supposed to be a quick in and out. Hal only nods and slips back to her quiet shell, looking around silently at the trees. Jokes holds a conversation with himself, muttering something about organization guidelines. A few miles from the drop-off, Fedora leads the other two into a clearing with a dense forest. An old house sitting in its center. It had beaten up windows, and the moss-covered exterior only gave it a haunting expression. Even though it was in that state of being, there was a light within the building, the yellow light clearly flickering. Fedora steps up and knocks on the door. This is Agent Fedora from the Redacted organization. Please open up. For a second, Jokes thought it was an elaborate trick from Fedora, when the door flung open. Standing at the door was something clearly not human. Though she looked like a young woman, her eyes were sewn closed with coarse thread, her face flushed with an orange undertone, and she wore rags. Where the rags didn't cover her, there were lines of scars, some not even healed completely. Guys, Fedora said softly, meet the entity named Rags. She is our friend who will help restrain E-003 if needed. At the mention of the word friend, Rags had turned her head up towards Fedora. What the hell? Emotion rolled off Hal's voice. Jokes was unable to keep his eye off the entity, not convincingly looking around the clearing. Hal points a finger at Fedora. What is she supposed to be? Is this even allowed? Without turning his back to Rags, Fedora nods. The organization often works with other entities to help complete the objective. Obviously, not any entity can work with us. But he reaches out and holds Rags' hand. Some are willing to help. Rags here is an entity that is classified as a higher tier entity that the organization is hard-pressed to truly contain or could destroy. Fedora picks up his tracker and starts to lead the group, now numbered 4, southward. Continuing, he says, I want both of you to understand that using entities is a complicated thing. However, the higher-ups recommended Rags because she's impervious to any sort of mental manipulation and is a hard hitter. Agent Hal looks at the entity. She looked like a malnourished teenage girl, and didn't seem to be able to even carry her own body weight. Is she safe, she asks. Fedora smiles. You know she understands English, right? As Hal's face drops into a shocked "oh," he continues. It's fine though. All entities that help in the field are verified by the organization. As they continue their trek through the clinging damp forest, both Jokes and Howls keep their eye on the forest, scanning for anything that could jump out for them. Or maybe they didn't just want to look at Rags. They found Warbell standing in the middle of a river. While it was odd, the entity remained still even as the group walked up to it. Just as the files had indicated, the entity was currently an Asian male with a distinctive hole in his chest. The squad slowed down to a halt as they approached the edge of a river. I'm just going to say hi, Fedora said, letting go of Rag's hands. Keep an eye out for anything. As he sloshes through the quietly flowing river, Joke retreats back to the forest line, keeping his eyes on the forest edge. Emily seems to be deadly focused on the entity, finger hooked over the trigger of the blaster. Hello, Fedora said. Would you care to walk with me? Standing next to him, Rags reaches out and holds slightly onto Belle's hands. Without any fanfare, Warbell walks towards Fedora, its eyes seemingly unfocused. Fedora walks towards the pickup site with the other two entities in hand. Jokes falls behind, his eyes darting around, just as it was taught in school. Hal stood even further behind, stiff and locked up. Without anyone noticing, the group didn't hear the sounds around them. Without anyone noticing, the group didn't hear that the sounds around them had fallen silent. A deathly kind of silent. The pickup helicopter stood ready to lift off, the blades already spinning faster. The sun was sliding down from the sky, picking up orange streaks. The group continued within the same procession. At some point, Rags had started skipping as they traveled, and Warbell had started to change its skin color. It happened randomly. Rags struck out and shoved Fedora, causing him to slam into Warbell. The sudden movement spooked the already jumpy Agent Howell, and shot a blaster at Belle. When Agent Jokes rolls up from the ground, he noticed a pain radiating from his calf. As he checked, there were clear signs of light blaster burns. In the background, the helicopter was in flames. There were several animals within the vicinity, all running from the clearing, panicking, howling, chirping violently. Fedora was laid crumpled on the forest floor. Because he read the file, Jokes knew. Warbell had triggered its effect. As Jokes ran up to Fedora, it was quite easy to say, Hal was MIA, and this was a failed objective.